Thank you very much, and hello everyone. Nice good group of people, excellent. You've been listening, and so you'd be relieved to know that John and I planned a sort of mixed session with you, so we will be asking you to get together and discuss the issues that we're going to put before you on today, and we'll after this presentation. So, credentials. Why would I be standing here and talking to you? Well, I'm a professor of sustainable development. I've been in academia for ages, maybe about 4 years. Before that, I used to run sustainable development consultancies. 10 years, a third sector consultancy set up by the Cooperative Bank to help organisations of all kinds to emulate what the co-op's done, which is to run their organisation against sustainable lines, both environmental and social, and that includes interaction with staff and customers and the like stakeholder groups, and so I've picked up a few tricks of the trade along the way. In fact, I'm so interested in this, and my inability to convince senior decision makers every time that the sustainable path was the right path, that my frustration led me to collaborate with an organisational psychologist, Carrie Cooper, professor now at Lancaster, some of you might know. We wrote a book together called Positively Responsible, and the basis of it was this. How is it that human beings who model themselves on rational decision-making can be so stupid? Well, I've wondered about that from time to time, but as a professional sustainable change person, it was particularly vexing to me, because obviously I was rubbish at my job because I wasn't winning every time. Was that right? So we got together and wrote the book, and I learned quite a few things from that, and that has led, since I've been at Salford, in the School of the Built Environment, unlikely context you might say, but I've been doing things like experimenting with in communities, asking why aren't you buying more insulation for your houses? Just all the evidence says it makes sense, but a lot of people don't. Why is that? And how can we get you to change your mind? Now, I've got very interesting things like incentives. So the experiment I ran in a place called Timperley in Manchester was I made a deal with people. I said, you buy a better boiler and I will give you your money back in fruit and vegetables, garden makeovers and access to FE education. And 20% of the sample changed their minds and actually went for it. Even though it was counterintuitive to them at the point of the proposal. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than that, and that's not what I'm here to explain. But I'm just sort of setting out some of my experience so that you can trust me with the message that I'm going to try to share. So, we'll see how that goes. What I wanted to do then, before I get John here to come up, is just to go through a few of the elements of learning that has led me to where I am today, which has helped me enormously in the project that we're doing at Salford now, which is to integrate sustainability throughout the whole of the curriculum. Not just schools, but environment. Everybody, languages, nursing, arts, everybody will get sustainability in every single learning program. Mad, you might say, but that's the project. And so, how did we get senior management to go with that? That's the story I'm going to share with you at the end of my bit. So, a few slides just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So clearly behaviour and the behaviour change, how people react to what you want them to do, is central to policy. You might not believe that when you talk to politicians or chief executives who think that just putting the evidence in front of people is the thing to do. And the idea about traditional carrot and stick things is, as I've already said, people, oddly enough, do not make decisions based on information. It's actually more about emotion and how you feel. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it's really important to know that, even if you're in front of the VC, the chief exec, however your organisation is set up, that he or she will always say, I need the facts. But the reality is, they need to feel it. Once you get that, things get a lot easier. The other thing is that it's almost impossible, psychologists say, to change somebody's mind. And we always talk about that. We said, we're going to go out and win hearts and minds, or change hearts and minds. That is not a good strategy, because you will be up against it. Basically, you are faced with a whole range of different conscious and unconscious reasons why someone holds an attitude or a view. That you then, depending on where you are, who you are, what you're saying, is trying to knock them off that perch at a certain moment. Tough deal. You know, that is not easy. It is possible. People do, and all the time go, wow, I never realised that. Huh, okay, yeah, I'll do things differently. That does happen. Not very often. Not very often. So, much better to think about the context in which to make decisions. Okay? What's running their thoughts? What would make it easier for someone to do something differently? And so incentives is an obvious one, but there's many, many other ways you can change the context. I need you to do this. No, I'm not interested. I'm going to give you goodies. Well, still not interested, but I like the goodies. Okay? You change the context, but you haven't changed their mind necessarily. Now, position A is change the mind, because that's much more long-lived. But if you want particularly short-term decision, and many of the things that we are doing to senior management have to do with the tick, and so please let us get on with it, that's quite important. Now, most people think that the inability to see sense is about denial. Certainly in environmental climate change and various other things, that is where we are. But even this position, which is a disaster in terms of behaviour change, needs to be understood. If someone's in denial and they're just not willing to face the issue, then there's no amount of information is going to shift them. No amount of pleading or anything else. The fact is that inaction, denial, inertia can be described, and I'm not selling this to you, I'm just presenting a different perspective here. Where psychoanalysts say that it's more about, particularly on the environmental and sustainability issues, about people who are freaked out about what's going on. You know, it is a tough position to sell, that if you don't do something, you probably go extinct. And it's entirely possible that might happen in our own generation. But certainly your kids like that. And if you think that that's a piece of factual information that people go, I never thought of it that way. Yes, no, thank you for informing me, I'll change. You are missing a huge part of your message, which is, oh my God, that is not a comfortable thought. And it's so uncomfortable, I'm not even going to deal with it. Is that because people don't care? No, it's because we have an inbuilt way of dealing with things. Think of all the horrible things you see on the news, or maybe even have witnessed firsthand. Okay, if you absorbed all of that and thought, "My God, that could happen to me, or my friends, or my loved ones," you know, it's perfectly possible. You wouldn't get out from under the duvet. But we do. Why is that? Because we're able to compartmentalize that stuff and get on. Okay, and those issues about climate change, resource consumption, and also issues around lack of cohesion, civil strife, the fact that we're going to have more riots, it said on Newsnight last night, inevitably. That's something that we're not going to deal with on a day-to-day basis. We're going to just, okay, maybe, but I'm just going to shove that into somewhere marked, don't want to deal with that. Okay? It's important, it doesn't mean that people don't care. Sometimes you could say, they don't care too much. Okay, so this is the main position that you're going to encounter, particularly when you're trying to sell a sustainability idea to senior management. That's really interesting. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Yeah, we'll think about that. We'll set up a subcommittee. We'll look at it in the next budget. Yeah, that's what we'll do. And also, we'll look to employ somebody next year. And I'll talk to some people and get back to you. Okay? All of that is lateral issues around confusion. I don't actually know what to do. This person's confronting me with something, and it looks like a thing that I shouldn't say no to, but I'm not confident to say yes, so I'm going to beat around the bush. Okay? Is that a good thing? No, because it means that nothing happens. Same the deniers. But it is a good thing in psychological terms, because in effect, the recipient of your message is opening up, and they're saying, I don't know what to do, but I realize that I need help. I need help. So it's your job to the confused to take apart and understand their confusion and make that decision as easy as possible. Okay? If you present someone with a problem and say, what are you going to do about it? You're not going to go very far. The best thing to do is, here's the issue, here's the solution, here's how I thought we could do that in monetary or other terms. Much, much better. Takes apart the confusion. So here's the point, and lots of people make this point. I just like the quote. It really isn't about facts, and really got to understand that. It's not a nice thing to realise. Just illustrate the fact that people generally want to do something rather than don't want to do something, because that's our normal thing. I mean, I've been sustainability practitioner all my career. I have had no shoved at me, or maybe on 80% of the cases. I get rejection. I understand it. Happens all the time. I'm giving up because it's so important. We need to carry on. It'd be nice to be more effective, which is why I'm here today. But to think that people aren't bothered is wrong. And so it's nicely illustrated on climate change. So there's very, very few people these days who are saying, I don't believe in climate change. There's a few more who say, yeah, it's happening, but it's overstated for various reasons, because they want to fleece us for taxes or some other sort of draconian, sinister measure. And we get a lot of this, which is, yeah, we should do something, but it's the Chinese and all the rest of it. So let's see them do something. I wouldn't do well with this problem. That's an attitude. All right? But note that even these fairly difficult positions to break down are still generally accepting after the first one. And then you get a whole bunch of different selection of reasons why. So I mentioned China, and why should I do something if others don't? This idea, which we'll come on to later, this norm-based idea that if I don't see someone else doing it, I'm not going to do it, is really, really important. And we'll come on to the justice point in a minute. But this idea of inaction, what can little old me do? The idea that government and technology or the market will save us. All of these things, some of these things can be knocked over with facts. Market forces was one of the most difficult until we had the crash of 2008, and now, thank goodness, we don't have to deal with that. Oh no, it's all about the market. Is it really? You know, look at where we are at the moment. Obviously, that's not going to fly. But all of these things are all these lateral confused points. Okay, they're not rejecting, but they're finding things that you have to overcome. Little exercise now, just to sort of prove to you that people want to do something, but it's not that clear. So this is a consumer-based survey, but it's around global warming. So here we go, 4 positions. I'm going to ask you what you think people said. So bottom left, top right, pretty obvious. So bottom left, not bothered, not interested, not doing anything. Top right, ooh, yeah, definitely, I'll do anything sort of position. Top left is, well, you know, I'm not really driven by all of this, but I could see that you could get me to do something if it's interesting. And then on bottom right, yeah, really concerned, but I'm not doing anything. I can't see what's engaging. Okay, so I want you just to raise your hands and think, what was the dominant position? One of these is the dominant position. Now with this crowd, no pressure, I'd expect you to get this right. Many, many don't, though. So don't feel bad if you do. So, who thinks that the dominant position in the population is, don't really care, not going to do anything? Hands up. Not a soul. Good for you. Sadly, it isn't a zero, but it's not the dominant one. Who thinks that, that actually most people are switched on and they are prepared to do something? That's the dominant position. Hands up. Nobody again. Okay, who thinks that people are really, really bothered about that, but for one reason or another, they can't see what to do? Hands up to that one. Good. And then the top left, which is not really bothered, but you can get me to do something if you try. Up to you. See, I knew that most of you would get that. If you haven't, you're with the majority. This group's weird, but that's understandable. So that's what that survey, and that's quite a big number. Okay, so that could be depressing, but actually I find that strangely encouraging. First, that there isn't a predisposition, a predilect to say, I'm not really bothered about what's happening in the environment. People are generally, I've done work in some of the most deprived neighbourhoods in Britain, where housing associations that working with their tenants have told me, look, these folk really don't care. It's all about poverty and jobs, and drug dealers and things like that. And they're absolute rubbish. Couldn't be more wrong. 85% recognition at rate about the issue, and something around 80% people voluntarily saying it's my personal responsibility to do something about it. Their agency to do something about it is limited, but it's not about them. So do not think that this is an issue that is divided along those lines. It's just that people are finding it difficult to decide exactly what to do, when to do it, how much money to spend, that sort of thing. And that's quite important when you think about senior management. It's exactly the same issue. What do you think? Do you think this is a problem? Sir or ma'am? Yes? Oh, definitely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, why don't we spend 20 grand on more recycling bins? Well, you see, it's not really... Okay, so that's what's happening. It's really important to see that. Well, maybe some of you have got different stories where your managers are not as open to that. Okay, quick little professorial side, and we won't do much of this, but it is quite important to remember where we are on definitions and things. So attitudes and behaviours, quite important to remember that if someone has an attitude, it's sort of like a regular, reinforced position, okay? And that means you're predisposed to act in a certain way. It doesn't mean you will. That's quite important. So emotions, plus the thought, the intelligence kind of things, and the willingness to act, the behavioural thing, that all contributes to attitude. So it isn't just the information. That would be wrong. That's the point I've been making all along here. Emotion and a willingness to act is a major part of whether someone will. And the willingness is quite important. So senior managers, like everybody else, have got the same idea, which is, if I do this, is it going to work? And what will people think of me if I do it? You might think that's just mad, that those things are important, but apparently they are. And I've boiled it down. This is, if any psychologists in the room? Hands up. One. Of course. So you'll recognize this. This is just one of a whole bunch of different theories you could rely on. I like it simply because I'm interested in communication of these issues, and not simply the straight science of it. And this communicates to decision makers better than anybody else. So good that I'll use it in the case study in a minute to show you how you can work it yourselves. So there's five basic ideas behind this, which is behind this theory, which is, do people realize that there is a problem, that's all? Do they care about it, which are two different things. What should they do about it? If they do something, will it work, and what will people think of it? You might think this what will people think of me, particularly for senior managers, is not really relevant. That can't be do? That's quite disturbing, don't you think? I always crack a joke, and I John told me to do this one already, which is that in certain countries, in certain cultures, this is quite a major issue, and this is definitely one of those countries, because in Britain you really can die of embarrassment. And that's illustrated by, remember when a minister said that packaging is terrible, isn't it? And everyone should do something about it. Teach the supermarkets a lesson. When you've done your checkout thing, okay, and you're packing up, remember this? Take all the packaging off and leave it in a pile. You know, is anybody going to do that? Has anybody done that? I'd love to meet someone like that. The most committed environmentalist would probably rather be swallowed up in the earth than have, you know, a dozen pair of eyes bearing down on them going, I can't just, what is, not going to happen. Really, really important. And senior managers are the same. Apparently, as senior managers, chief executives, the thing that they are most worried about is being found out. I love that. I think that's really interesting. Because you don't have to explain it to them matter what you do. It's just, it is bad. I don't want to be found out. And the thing they talk about when they all get together, VCs do this all the time, what's the great story that's coming out of my organization today? You know, we've just won this award, did you hear? Yeah, but we've just built this amazing thing. Oh, yeah. That's what, you know, that's what it's about, you see. It's all about that norm-based behavior. What do people think of how I'm doing? You need to know that. And this idea of being hoodwinked, of the unfairness of things. I love this cartoon. It's really, really big. Has everybody seen this? It's brilliant. It's brilliant. It just illustrates the point really, really well. You know, it doesn't matter if it's the right thing to do. You've got to be doing it for the right reason. Justice is very important. Okay, I've got a quick slide here about values, and this is more of an advert really for my next workshop later on today, which is about values-based campaigns and how you use it. And I really, really like this work. Some of you might have seen it. Instead of the normal segmentation that you get, some of you might have done this sort of thing, Mosaic and various other things, Acorn, which is more or less about income demographics. This is about, effectively, Maslow's human needs. And I think it works really well, because if you cross the standard segmentation about how you choose with different categories of people and try to influence them, with this you find there's a yawning gap with the prospectors side of things. These are people for whom esteem is really important. Okay? And that means that if you are going to sort of try to get them to do something on their own, or sort of say, if you don't do this, terrible things will happen, you leave them absolutely cold. And funnily enough, most campaigns are either one or the other. But if you create a circumstance where esteem rises to the fore, where people can shine, to work together, to come to consensus, to be seen to be doing something in a group, in a community of decision makers, that really, really works. And that's the sort of thing decision makers love to hear, because they're all about engagement and inclusion. But campaigners, and people who are trying to sell things to senior management, often have a much more absolute way. We should do this, and we should just make people do it. I'll illustrate that with my example in a minute. Okay, so my thing is that you have to have a triple track strategy. You have to help senior management, or anybody who's trying to make a decision, to have the right information at the right time. And I'll illustrate that with my case study. Incentives are important, and it doesn't always have to be cash, although that helps. The thing I was using, as I told you at the beginning, is non-cash incentives, which I can obtain from donors at a cheaper rate than real money. So, for instance, FE places, FE colleges generally have a surplus of places which they can't fill. Okay, they start with their core group, 16 to 19-year-olds. Okay, who are into further education for the first time. If you've already been through the education system, you can't go through again without paying. Many people have made a mistake in younger life would like to do further education can't afford it. Okay, so they've got a huge bunch of empty seats which they would love to fill. And they're happy to give that over. So I had 10 grand worth of empty chairs to give away to householders without really even trying. Okay? So that's just one example of many different things you can do around incentives. Obviously, not a perfect example in this context, but you get the idea. There are other things you can do. Just find the right donors. And then this norm-based thing. You have to create a climate. You have to create an aura of change, that things are happening where people can see. So some of you have this. We've just put energy consumption boards in the foyers of all of our buildings. Okay, a bit late to this party, but you're finding that. We're coupling that with a push on sustainability research and this thing that I told you about, which is sustainability in the curriculum. The idea being that whoever you are, wherever you are in the university, you're going to come across this issue of sustainability any one time. Okay? So you're building this, hopefully, irresistible tidal wave of initiative that can't be ignored. And if you're not doing something, if you're not with the game, you must be outside, and then you are the person taking the wrapping off in the check. Okay, you don't want to be there. No, I want to be with the herd. I don't want to be in there. That's the idea. That's the strategy. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story, then I'm going to hand over to John. So, what do? We had this mad idea, which came up because it's an element of eco-campus. Anybody doing eco-campus in? Yeah, good. And you know that some of you are doing it. There's primarily an environmental management system state-based, but there's this little bar floating off which says curriculum. And so I'm on our carbon management board at the university. I said, Vice Chancellor, should we be doing this? Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Go and do it, Eric. Oh, right, thank you. Okay, I'll see what I can do. So off I go to the Pro-Vice Chancellor, Teaching and Learning. The Chancellor wants us to do this. And he went, yeah, no, good idea. Go off and do it. I said, no, that's not going to work. Well, let's do a survey first so you know what you're up against. So we did, and lo and behold, some people were enthusiastic, some people absolutely hated the idea. This was at the Associate Head Teaching and Learning, middle management, basically. And some were lukewarm, said, I'd love to do it, but. And I haven't got time to share all of those things, but that's what we found. And so then we got this Change Academy place. Some of you might have been through Change Academy. It's an HEA-assisted program for people who have got mad ideas that aren't working. No, that have ideas which require an institutional cultural change, and it helps you to understand how to shift. I've learned a lot. It is not my thing, I have to say. But I was the leader of our bunch, and it's been very good. And so what happened at the end of that, because you do a residential and you come up with a plan. And our plan was that our senior management were more or less on board, as I just told you. Yeah, great idea, do it. So that wasn't a problem. And the lecturer layer may or may not be enthusiastic, but they didn't have any power to. So it had to be the middle out. It had to be program directors and associate heads of teaching and learning at school. That had to be that. Okay. And this is just an illustration. Any ideas or anything that you're doing, just translate what I'm doing, because it's an entirely transferable story. Okay, so came back and said, right, I'll start. So I started talking to heads of school just to sort of butter them up and get them going. Brick wall. Why not? Great idea, Aaron, but we've got lots of other things to do. So it ain't going to happen unless we get an executive order. Some of you can okay, 3 months later, very annoying, we got our executive order and we're off and running. But at that meeting, the Vice Chancellor had some time to think about this, and he thought, you know what, that picking off middle management, particularly from a lowly professor, I will call myself, obviously I've got history, but I haven't got any management responsibility. may not work, even with the executive order. Said, well, I think we should probably do is have a bottom-up one. And then he came up with another idea. But before I share that with you, I'm going to apply these original ideas and his reaction to it to this model. Okay, so let's just look at that again. So when we were thinking about academic program directors and trying to get them to integrate sustainability into all their programs, what do you think their reaction was against this model? Okay, so let's take it through. So, did they think that there was a problem? Problem is, it's negligent to allow any graduate to leave our organisation with a clear understanding of their role in environmental, social, and economic sustainability. I mean, particularly acute for me, because I teach built environment students. 50% of the environmental impacts comes from the environment. So they're amongst the most dangerous or powerful people on earth, and I tell them that all the time, much to their discomfort. So do the people responsible for putting the programs together think that that's a problem, that's an issue, that we're allowing people to graduate without understanding how climate change works or what fossil fuels are or anything? Not really. Not really. Some do, some don't. Okay? Now that's an education issue, but it's not so bad. So, do they care that people are graduating? Not really. Do they know what to do about it? Oh yeah, they do know what to do about it, but they're not willing to do it. And do they think the solution would work? Some do, some don't. It's not a big thing. Okay? If we put things in front of students, will they absorb it? Will they put on their NSS form, yes, I have understood sustainability and this has been a great experience for me? Who knows? Who knows? Not higher than radar, okay? And what will my peers think if I spend a lot of time and effort on this issue when our NSS scores are way down on, say, feedback, or we're not getting enough people into decent jobs and we're falling down, they will think I'm absolutely bonkers. So you see what we're up against, and when you apply that model to that proposition, or if I had tried to go in without really thinking it through, or any of you tried to go in to sell this to someone without applying a model like that, you would definitely change your mind about how you approach things. I mean, what I would have done had the VC said, yeah, we'll let you lose. He's doing it himself, by the way. Is that I would have probably used more sticks than carrots, because that's the climate that we're in. But let's see what the VC would have said if we applied this. So we'll go to him now, apply the same model. So we want to do this, VC. What do you think? Does he think there's a problem? Oh yes. At Salford and a number of other universities, particularly inner city areas, it's not very attractive to come to places like that. You know, there are riots, people get shot, it's not good. And no matter how good our reputation is, a lot of people are worried about it. But if we characterize ourselves as we're going to, and some universities have already gone down this road, right, for instance, very good on this, we can say that this is the future. If you want to change the world, if you care about environmental and social sustainability, you want to do a course which is right on the money, right in the heart where it's happening and where change is happening, right at the interface, you need to come to Salford. Because that is where it's at. That's where sustainability for real is happening. That's where the research is happening. That's where all the key courses are going to happen. I walk my regeneration students to a case study. I walk them to a case study. You know, 5 minutes down the road, you couldn't hope for a better laboratory. That's a great selling point, okay? He gets that. Does he care about sustainability? Actually, personally, he does. That's a bonus. It doesn't always happen, but it does happen. So emotionally, he's engaged. Come from South Africa, been through apartheid, really gets it, okay? Now, does he know what to do about it? Well, at first, wasn't that clear. I mean, that's where I came in. I helped him, I mapped it out, I said, here's what we need to do, these are the materials, we can do a sort of general pool of information, and all the rest of it. So I helped him over that one, so he was very clear by the time he made the decision. Will it work? Well, jury's out. Hopefully, if we get it right, it will. So he'd be okay with that. And what will my peers think about this? They will be very interested. This is an exciting project. This is something to brag about. I just built a new building, really. I wonder how much energy that is. Well, actually, we've got a whole integrated sustainability thing in our curriculum. Okay, great. You know, fantastic. So do you see how that's going to work? So I find the model really helpful. And so, just to summarise my bit, hand over to is that we really would like to get the message that information doesn't always work. In fact, it rarely does. You don't get all the rest of it. There's lots of reasons why people don't do things, and you have to equip senior managers in a range of different ways. So foreknowledge, understanding who you're dealing with, obviously quite important, because I'm telling you, interpreting what people say, because I've done the homework, I know the sort of things they're going to say, and I've been able to apply that model and know where the pitfalls would have happened before it happened. Okay, so that's generally what I wanted to share with you. And so I am now going to hand over to John, who has been working with many different organisations in this.
Well, good morning all. I'm John Warren. I work for Carbon Ready, a consultancy just down the road in Leeds. As Professor Bishard said, we've sold many behaviour change programmes to senior management teams, mainly in the private sector, but last October we put on a conference for a successful project at the University of Bradford, which is where I met Professor Bishard, and we invited people in just to come and share their experience. So that's what I kind of wanted to do today, really, was just give a little bit of background to the way that we see sales from the external perspective, and hopefully to pick up a few of the messages from that. And then we'll just go into a workshop situation where we can share some ideas and some of your own experience. So, behaviour change, making people take action. This should be quite familiar to us if we're into behaviour change. And is this not the same process that we want to use to convince senior managers to take action as well? This is a construct that we have that we build up behaviour change programs on, moving people from unaware to be interested in what they can do and convinced that they can take action, to actually taking the action. So is there some learning from our own programs or from our programs that we can apply in this situation? I suppose that's the first point to think about. Strategic selling. This is some of the things that we think about when we're approaching a new client. So who are the buying individuals, or who are the buying, what roles do these individuals have in terms of helping us succeed? Economic buyers are the people that hold the purse strings, who can sign up on the project. Technical buyers, you might have those in your organisations who will just screen out some of your ideas. Users, they might have a particular perspective, concerned about whether the behaviour change campaign can be run on a day-to-day, or what will it mean for me, what resources will I need later on. And coaches, maybe people that you met that might be advocates of behaviour change programs, or people like the BCPA, who might be able to, the gatekeeper to diaries, and be able to offer you some advice on how to get in there and what's most convenient for the senior manager you're trying to convince. Before we would go into a sales meeting, we would always think about what red flags we might incur. And this might be missing information in what we're trying to put together, or potential weaknesses. And then conversely, there's positions of strength as well. Often senior managers will put out a little bit of text about how they're succeeding, or what their strategic aims might be, and that might be an opportunity to marry those up with what you're trying to deliver as well. What's their response mode going to be? What kind of buying mindset are they in? if they're in growth or if they're expanding their facilities, or they're in trouble because they're not hitting targets or being kicked down the stairs in terms of the Green League or something like that, the chances are you've got a good chance of a good response. If they're on an even keel, if they are perhaps making some progress with their targets, or they're overconfident about how things are going, then these kind of responses make it difficult to make progress. We like to understand the competition. You might say from an internal perspective there is no competition, but there will always be competition to behaviour change programs. Marks and Spencer's, you'll never sell them a behaviour change program because they've fully automated all their stores or on the road to doing so. So there are technology solutions out there that might offer similar benefits to some of the behavioural change stuff that we're trying to go with. Win results as well. Professor Bishop mentioned a bit about the personal win or talking about positive business results or having that positive story. Will I succeed in this success? So as well as delivering the fact-based reasoning, we've got to look at whether there's a personal win for the person buying. This is another approach we use, spin selling. So rather than focusing on the features of a solution, you might start to think about some of the questions. And research shows that people who take more of a questioning style to a conversation with a senior manager are more likely to succeed. So although you're probably quite excited about all the features and the benefits your solution might bring, you've got to think of that in terms of a number of questions, in terms of leading the senior manager through. So questions like, what energy efficient behaviours do you see on campus? That's kind of a situation question. And they might start to talk about, well, the buses are empty, the halls of residence are finding too hot. So really get them into the conversation and start them opening up. Problem questions about what difference would it make if you knew that staff could make a difference? Implication questions. If we get this right, what will it mean for your ROIs on your new buildings? And then need payoff questions. So you can launch into your behaviour change program and talk about the benefits a bit more. If we define a program such as this, what would the benefits be and what could we achieve? So those are a few different aspects that might be worth reviewing. So it leads us now into the workshop. There's a few different questions in here to think about some of the stuff that we've said this morning. So it'd be great. I know the room's not conducive really to a workshop discussion style, but perhaps if you kind of maximise groups of 3 or 4 of you, you could think of a sales situation that you might have been in, or one that you might get yourselves into in terms of selling a behaviour change program, and talk about what you know about the decision makers, how you're going to influence them, what sort of mode they're going to be thinking of, and maybe some questions that you could ask them in terms of driving those conversations. And then perhaps another thing to think about as well is developing an elevator pitch to make sure that is crystal clear. So, Taylor, if you want to...
I think what we're hoping for is just a quick chat amongst yourselves, and then it's about sharing the story. It's just a prompt share amongst yourselves, and maybe absorb a little bit of the things that we've been sharing with you. So if you've tried or you've been involved in any initiative really where you try to engage senior management, that would be good to hear about applying some of these things. If you haven't, but you've been a sort of victim of it, you've been swept along by something, you can observe it from the afflicted's point of view. Whether they tried to do this in our place, and it was horrible. And why? Why do you think applying from the other side of the fence, just so we don't exclude people who haven't actually been actively engaged? Okay, we can finish up the conversation. conversations, if one of you, well actually it's not that important, anybody who's got anything from any conversations, a story that we really want, and if you can relate that to anything that we've been sharing with you, it'll be a bonus. But we'd really like to hear how in your experience, trying to engage senior management has worked, hasn't worked, why you think it didn't. That's really the sort of sketch we're trying to go for here. So, does anybody want to start us off?
A really good thing that I use with my students on what you're describing is what we call diffusion of innovation theory. But if you Google, there's a YouTube clip. It's called something about first follower. It's absolutely brilliant. It's
the one on the hill.
On the hill, have you seen it?
Yeah, we use
if anyone hasn't seen it, it's genius. It's a guy dancing. It's at a festival, and he's dancing like a lunatic with his shirt off. And so he's that first person. He could be the sustainability manager. It could be whoever it is. And as he is, he's a lone lunatic. Right? And everyone else is looking at him. But the fundamental thing is then when the first follower joins him, someone stands up next to him and dances like a crazy person next to him. Then other people start to think, well, that looks like fun. And so a few more people come up. Well, now you've got a movement. And literally, this thing's shown in real time. Within 3 minutes, everybody on the hillside is up and dancing. And it's incredible. And it's really worth watching, and it's a great way of teaching people about things. But that's what you're describing as a case.
And you know, you can feed it into all sorts of things that we've talked about. That value segmentation thing, perfect. So the guy starting, he's a pioneer. Okay. And actually, statistically, most of us are pioneers in this room, because that's what we're into and we're up against it. But it's the next esteem-based side of things. Oh, okay, I would have done it first, and so it really, really works. Yeah.
Can I suggest that we look at speaking to the expectations and the paradigm that senior management group is working with? They're working on research excellence in the case of any university. So you've got to address their priorities. So it's something about speaking the language, but also addressing the priorities.
Yeah.
And
Can
evidencing
you
how
illustrate
this
that
works.
for us? Have you got a story? Can you illustrate how that's been done in your experience?
Well, the little vignette I was talking about was that we were promoting sustainability and social responsibility and having a conversation with with vice principals. And they were saying, no, it's that green stuff, you just stay over there. We turned it around and called it social responsibility and sustainability, and of course that's what the university is about. That's what the mission is, to serve society.
You change the context. You haven't changed the minds, you change the context.
And then using language and setting that addresses their research priorities, their learning and teaching priorities, and then as campus and community. Putting it in the language context that helps.
And in the values session I'm going to do later on, talk a lot more about framing, which is effectively what you're talking about. It's the same message, put a different frame around it, looks different. Oh no, I like that one, I didn't like that one. It's the same thing, really. So that is really, really good. That story, if anyone else can share something that they've been doing or discussion of that in the group. More? Yeah, go ahead.
School of Finance. So we teach finance in secondary schools, 14 to 19, right up to Masters level in London. Similar length of time, 2.5 years ago, I'm kind of pioneer for the IFS. The principal gets it from South Africa, he really is on board. The next level down, really, I guess, engaging. My first task is to get into the curriculum. So the academics have said to me, what's it got to do with financial services, education? So the last 2 years I've tried to define it, the IFS, because it is different to teaching it somewhere else. So I've been to talk to the banks, said the sustainability, done the research, and it seemed a really slow process, but I need to define it, what it means to us. What's it to do with teaching, lending, investment, and risk management? But it's just
Paddle Story School of Nursing, exactly the same thing happened. So you should be doing this. No, we're not doing it because our accrediting body, RCN, wouldn't have. Any health practitioners in the room? Just nursing. Tough gig. You know, they really know what they need to do, and they're not going anywhere else. And they teach a lot of people coming off the wards who are tough customers, you know, and they complain when they get stuff that they don't think is useful to them. So exactly the same thing happened. No accreditation, no good. Go into the RCN. Actually, they say we're very keen on sustainability. Yeah, I know. We want our people qualified coming out. Go back and say, actually, did you know? Oh, right. So we've got to do it then. It wasn't that the accreditation, they hadn't bothered asking because they didn't want to do it in the first place.
They just said curriculum too full already.
Right. Always happens.
What it says, if you actually look deeper, it's already there. You've just got to call it something else or twist it a little bit. Then it is already in there.
Perfect. Really good stuff. Okay. Anybody else? Come up with something? Experience talking to senior management? Lived through something that could have gone better?
Well, recognition.
Right.
And we've used the Green Impact Awards
Good.
to, and we're introducing it to Edinburgh. Don't call it Green Impact because that's somebody else's.
Yeah.
We've got it. We've collaborated with the Students' Association, who 4 years ago established teaching awards, because teaching has been deprioritised in the old universities for a long time, just for researchers,
Right.
So recognising that it's great when a tutor, a lecturer gets recognition, and that makes everyone walk taller and so on. So building on that experience of the teaching awards, recognition through the Edinburgh Sustainability Awards means that teams who are doing something can find an outlet for demonstrating what they're doing.
Fantastic. And that speaks to this esteem-based people. It speaks to the incentive idea where non-financial incentives are often just as effective.
And then awards ceremony, the vice
Right.
principals giving out bronze.
And then people say, oh, I want some of that. That looks like something. That is really, really important. How are we doing? Fantastic. So John has been really good. He's been trying to capture, because we need to produce 3 killer points out of this. And this is basically what he's saying. Anybody want to sort of add, subtract, augment what you can say? Yeah.
I think it's always important to work with people rather than just supplying them with new things to do, because every case is different. And particularly with like degree courses, that will be doing different things. People think they've already integrated sustainability and collaboration perceptions of what sustainability means.
Really, really good point. Fundamental tenet: start from where people are, not from where you would like them to be. That is so important. Absolutely, great point. Great point. And it gets a bit more complicated though, because very often people think that they get it or they are doing it and they're not. And that's probably the most difficult for us to crack. So working with my residents, you know, don't you think you should invest in installation? No, I've already done that. Ask a few more questions. They've only got a thin layer on half of the roof, and they did that in 1963. Yeah, but I've done that. You know, why would I spend any more money to do that? You know, double glazing. Yeah, no, we've got that in 2 rooms on the upper floor. No, you know, that's okay. And the same thing happens with academics and senior. Oh yeah, well I went to something ages ago and I get that. Or you know, I wrote a little line in one lecture, and we do sustainability. I've been 3 years. Well, actually, no. But they're committed to it. So you know, you've got to change that dynamic and help them through. Good. Okay. Anybody else want to change our little list there?
I think it's about actually defining what sustainability actually means in presentation research with people you're talking to as well.
Right.
For faculty, if you give specific examples of what it actually means in the teaching and the faculty, so that they understand exactly what they need to go.
That's also a really good point. And on the curriculum thing, major stumbling block. Partly for the reason I just gave. No, we already do that. Do you really? No, maybe we don't. So that's one thing. But this whole debate about, it used to be, I think, major barrier. You spend all your life defining sustainability. What a waste of time. You know, you want to get on with it. But people find it, there's a lot of people who don't want to move forward unless they completely get it, and there's a lot more people who think, I really should know about it, I'm not admitting it. Because I'm supposed to be Mr. Know-it-all, or whatever. Always the men, actually, take that thing. But you know what I mean? So it is quite important. What I find useful on definitions of sustainability is get people together, preferably from different parts, because the collective learning is really, really powerful. People walk off. I did this with our Change Academy group. They came together, and nurses and language people and all sorts, and they were like, ooh, I don't know why I'm here, I don't really know about sustainability. They were there because they were really good they were good educators or administrators. And I did a session with them, 1 hour, based on the natural step, which some of you will know, and really gets through it quickly. At the end of that, they all went, okay, no, we get that, not a peak. So on 4 days, rest of the 4 days went really, really well. Nobody else could, no, skills don't